In the name of God, the Beneficent, the Merciful. We started the practical class in digestive system. As you can see here, we can palpate and distinguish some parts that we say day-to-day landmark. For example, the coastal margin on the right side, we can palpate behind the skin, and at the left side again. And another point, as I show by my right hand, this is the iliac crest, and then we can find the anterior superior iliac spine, and then we can find the inguinal ligament and reach to the pubic tubercle at this point. And as you can see here, the umbilicus is another landmark, and for find the deepest part, we should by scalpel separate the skin, this line, and circle the umbilicus as a landmark, and then continues to reach to the symphysis pubic. By scalpel, we should separate just the skin, I mean epiderm and derm, because in these lines of the inguinal ligament, midline, and costal margin. And then when we separate the skin, we can find the follicles of the hair here. It shows that we separate the skin from the superficial fascia. Now, as you can distinguish, this layer is superficial fascia that contain fat uh, and nerves and vessels, of course. By we should find the superficial or cutaneous branch. This is anterior cutaneous nerves. This is T10 because it's at the level of the umbilicus. 9, one which above, and 8, and finally 7. So when we cut and separate superficial fascia from the deep fascia and separate it, we can find the lateral cutaneous nerves that at the mid-axillary line reach to the superficial fascia. Uh, we should attention to the at the midline between the umbilicus and symphysis pubic. I mean here we can separate superficial fascia into layers. Camper, this is the camper layer that of course is a continuous superiorly by the thorax and inferiorly by the superficial of the thigh. Under the camper, this is the camper, under the camper we can find a membranous layer of the fascia, I mean fascia scarpa, and it's not contain any fat, and it's covered the upper nerves of external oblique, and the left pancet show the attachment of the scarpa to the lata, facial lata at the Holden line. The right pancet show you the attachment to the lata. Uh, this is the Holden line here, and on the right and the left side, fascia scarpa, camper. This is the camper fascia. When we remove the superficial fascia, you can see the deep fascia that cover the aponeurosis of the muscles, I mean muscle fibers and aponeurosis. When we remove the superficial fascia, we reach to the aponeurosis of external oblique. This is external oblique muscles, and my hand show you the inguinal ligament that we distinguished before. This is the superficial ring of the inguinal canal, antepensed goes through the superficial, right and left crura as clear. We separate and made a cut through the upper nerves of external oblique at the midline between the umbilicus and symphysis pubic. Then we made cut inferiorly, and we should made a cut around the iliohypogastric nerve. And when we can turn up the upper nerves of external oblique, and this one is iliohypogastric nerve that pierce the upper nerve. This is the course of the nerves that pierce the internal oblique and then pierce the upper nerves of the external oblique, and 1 inch above the superficial ring being appear here. So this nerve is ilioinguinal nerve that is going through the superficial ring being superficial. This is the muscle fibers of internal oblique and iliohypogastric, and then ilioinguinal nerve that goes through the superficial ring and become superficial, supply the thigh and genital. We separate the deep fascia over the external oblique muscle. You can see the muscle fibers of the external oblique, the direction of the muscles fiber, and when we made a cut, window cut through the external oblique, then you can beyond this muscle see the internal oblique by this direction that going down and medially. When we another made to the internal oblique, we reach to the transverse abdominis muscle that arrange transverse internal oblique, and external oblique is clear here. We have around 2 midline rectus abdominis muscles that covered by sheet of rectus, okay, that made by the upper nerves of 3 muscles. Of course, we can palpate this muscle, I mean the linea alba at the midline. We separate and made a cut longitudinally through the sheet of the rectus, and we separate this sheet anteriorly. You can check the rectus abdominis muscle fibers that it may be from above reach to the down or down reach to the ribs above, and superiorly above the umbilicus. Again I made cut, and you can here distinguish the intertendinous section. This is the first intertendinous section at the level of the umbilicus, another one at the xiphoid process level, and the third one between these two, above and inferior one at the midline. On my left hand, this is the upper sheet of the rectus. Attention, when we reach to the muscles, it may be we can find another muscles, pyramidalis, that is not here. As you can see here, we expected we find pyramidalis, but here in 20% it may be they haven't. The another most important things is these superficial nerves that goes through the lateral side of the rectus abdominis and finally pierces. And we should be attention that if we want to reach to the posterior surface of the rectus, we should turn to the lateral the rectus muscles, because from the lateral to medial side it maybe we cut the nerves. When we turn to the outside behind the rectus, you can see the arcuate line. This is the arcuate line that I show by the pancet, and below the arcuate line, this is the deep fascia, I mean transverse fascia, and above of this is the posterior layer of the rectus sheath. So you can see the vessels epigastric inferior that join to the superior at the superficial, the inferior epigastric pierce the transverse fascia and then reach to the behind of the rectus, and inside of the rectus join an anastomus by superficial epigastric. Above the umbilicus, when we made cut and turn to the lateral, this is the superficial epigastric vessels that you can see here behind the rectus sheath. And at the level of the umbilicus, they are anastomus by the inferior epigastric. This layer is the posterior layer of the rectus sheath, and this one is anterior layer of the rectus sheath.